Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for being here. Thank you for having me. This place is like home to me. I'm a lifelong member of Mount Tabor, and it's an honor to talk to you today about my writing journey. I was a little bit surprised that y'all didn't know I was a writer, and a little bit not surprised because it's something I've been doing kind of below the radar for about 26 years now, and just recently started building it up with changes in the publishing industry. And actually the industry has been changing the whole time. I've been writing since 2000, 2001. Actually, I started before then. Don't know how many of you were here for Friday night service, but I was let her. And if you remember, one of the readings was from 1 Corinthians about the Lord choosing the foolish things to, basically, bring the point, and remember that Jesus is the one that we rely on. Well, today you've got your foolish things standing right in front of you to prove that. Because my journey actually started, and the name of today's message is From a Drafting Table to the World. Now, what does a drafting table have to do with a writer? I am not a design professional. I've done that in my day job. I've licensed design professionals. What does a drafting table have to do with it? Well, when I was a child, there were two things that I thought everybody did, and I learned later in life, no, it was just me. The first thing I thought was that everybody had a drafting table in their laundry room. My father worked in the engineering field. He often brought work home. He worked with a friend of his. Actually, he did moonlighting. They call it a side gig now. I had to explain that to somebody. Side gig to me just sounds a little bit illegitimate. Like if somebody finds out you're doing it, you're going to get beat up or arrested. But that's just me. But he would bring work home, and during the day, a lot of times when he was at work, I'd go in there, I'd spread out my coloring books. I'd spread out all of my stuff. I'd color, and another thing that I did, and this was something else that I thought everybody did, I would get my books off of the bookshelf that mom and dad read. Or later when I could read myself, I had better ideas for these books. And I would draw in them. I would draw more story in them. I would write in them. I just colored and wrote, and I thought everybody did this. Well, I found out as I got older, one, not everybody had a drafting table in their laundry room, and if they did, they didn't mess around with it. I guess I was a bit bolder than my friends were. And I found out when I was 10 years old, when my mom went back to work as a preschool teacher, she was trying to look through some of our old books to do lesson plans, and was surprised to find all my pictures in them. And I learned that day that not everybody does that. And it was an interesting thing because there was one book in particular about a little boy who took a walk after the rain, where my brother and I were looking at the book for 20 minutes trying to figure out if I had drawn Jabba the Hutt or a walrus. And we came up with a walrus because even though at that time Star Wars was really popular and I had some friends that liked it, I didn't get into that until I was a little bit older, so we figured it was a walrus. And my mom was like, what am I supposed to do with this? And Dad was like, you didn't know she was doing this. I've been buying crayon and pencil all over my drawing board for like 10 years. I didn't know that he knew I was doing that. And my brother was just like, tell the kids about the walrus. I think that might be a more interesting story anyway. I want to hear that one. So, truth is, I've always been a writer. It's something that I've always done. It's just part of who I am. And after that little shenanigan of finding out that not everybody goes around making up stories and using their poor father's drafting table to do it, went through high school, college, kind of got out of it. Just the schools like that. Didn't really get back into writing until a couple of years after Rick and I got married. We finally got a computer, and that's the only way that it happened. Somebody recently asked me in an author interview, what do you think about typewriters? And I think they're quaint relics, and I wouldn't be a writer if that was the only way to do it. It's just, that's too much. I don't know how people did it then. But those old models, it used to be that was the way that it happened. And if you wanted to write or publish a book, you basically had to either write the book in its entirety, or write what they call a proposal, which is you tell people what you plan to do, how you plan to approach it. You try to get an agent that's going to represent you at one of the big 5 publishers. And the big 5 publishers, it used to be, those were Penguin Random House, HarperCollins, Simon & Schuster, Hachette Levere, and Maximum Publishers. And then they would have a whole bunch of imprints. And you would try to get an agent to try to tell them, hey, you know, you need to publish this book. The only thing about that model was it was really limited. It was really hard to get in. The time when I started writing, about 2000, 2001, things were changing. E-readers had come out in 1997. So now bookstores were not the only place you could get books. You could buy them online. And this really took a step forward in 2007 when Amazon developed the Kindle, this life-changing device. I don't know if any of you have one. I love it. I can stick it in my purse. It's like my emergency reading. This is great. You can store thousands of titles on it. This, I think, changed the world as much as iPhones, as much as anything. It just really opened up the world. And what happened was when ebooks started coming out, a lot of people realized that model was outdated, and some smaller publishers started opening up besides these big 5. And they would take requests directly from the writers. They just started saying, you know, it's just too limited, there's more out there, we're ready for something different. Wrote my first book called Battleground Earth. It was an inspirational novel. About 2004 is when it published. It did okay. It was through a small publisher called Publish America. And it did all right. You know, what they would do is they would do ebooks, and then they would also do print on demand. So if somebody wanted a paperback copy, instead of doing like the other publishers that would print like a few thousand and ship them out to stores, they would wait to get an order before they would print it and ship it out directly to the reader. And that was good. That was all right. I went along and I did that. And after my first book, I thought it was going to be a one and done. I got stuck. I tried to write a follow-up. It didn't seem to work out. I just could not get it to work. I did some articles. I entered some writing contests. I won a few. I placed in a few. I did okay. And then came the questions about doing inspirational type work. What gives you the right to tell me what to do? You know, we live in a world that's really hung up on credentials and qualifications. So what are your certifications? What are your licenses? What are your advanced degrees? Well, I'm writing from life experience because here's another thing I thought. Growing up with all of my teachers, they said if what you write is good, it'll get published. And it will if you write fiction. If you're getting into nonfiction, that's a little thornier. Now, I have to say, I kind of see where this comes from because my day job is in professional and occupational licensing. And I can kind of see where those questions come from because it can get a little territorial, and with good reason. You're trying to protect the public. So I understand that, and I kind of saw where it came from. It was just kind of an approach. It was a learning process. You know, I learned my writing basically by just diving in there and doing it. I didn't know anybody who was a writer. I didn't know anybody in the publishing industry. I joked around and I told people I started with less than nothing, and it took me about 5 years to work my way up to nothing before I finally figured out enough to know it takes more than just writing a book to be a writer. So around this time, it got to be around 2007, and Rick and I built a house. And during that process, it was kind of, boy, that was something, building a house. I don't know if any of y'all built a house. I asked Mom and Dad all the time, how did y'all do this without cell phones? I had that thing strapped to my hip or in my pocket. It was ringing all day long. It was all of these decisions. It was all this stuff. It was all on us to create this home and everything in it from the ground up, from nothing. And it was during this process of building the house, I started having these recurrent dreams of being in school and not being prepared. Just, you know, there was a test I didn't study for. I didn't do my homework. Here's one I still have from time to time. I'm enrolled in a class at USC. I forgot about it. I didn't attend it. And I can pass if I pass the final exam, but I haven't been to a lecture, I haven't done any of the reading, and I either get lost trying to go to the class, or I actually find it And either the elevator's broken, the stairs are locked, or I get there and there's absolutely nobody there. The room's empty. Apparently I have some subconscious issues with feeling like I have more left to learn. And that's okay, because don't we all? But it was during this process I started thinking about creating things. And I had an idea for a book. I had an idea for a young adult mystery novel. Those were quite popular when I was a teenager myself. And we're getting into the time now where that Twilight Saga was popular. Don't ask Polish writers what they think of that. We don't think much of it. We think if that could get out there, a lot more ought to be out there. But I wrote this novel, I got in with another publisher, followed up with 2 more books that were picked up with publishers, and that went all right. That went fairly well. Started building up. Now we've got social media. Now you need to get into social media, and this is how you market. You do it online. Ebooks are selling. I'm not moving any physical copies. It's all ebooks. And then I wrote in 2014 a paranormal mystery. I decided I was going to go out there. It was a paranormal mystery about a young woman who feels stagnated, and she unwittingly basically makes a deal with a demon to try to get her life right. The only problem was now her stuff's winding out at all these crime scenes. He's just killing everybody that's getting in her way and making it look like she did it. And I thought, man, this is the best thing I've written. This has got a really good shot. And my publishers hated it. They said, absolutely not. You have gone too far. You need to take that paranormal element out. You know, I had one other book with an enchanted music box. They were like, we gave you a pass on that one. That was all right. This is just way, it's out there. You've gone too far. So I started thinking and looking around, and I thought, they want me to take that element out, but the element makes the book. That's the entire basis of the book. And at this point I realized that Amazon had opened up something called KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing. Well, you could publish yourself. You could upload your manuscript, you could upload your cover, you could do it all yourself, and you didn't have to pay a dime to do it. They would just put the ebook out there and anybody could get it. That book outsold all 4 of my others. Every one of them. I actually did a sequel to it a couple of years later. People loved it. They wanted more. And at that point I thought, well, you know, maybe this is a way to go. Not because of any problem that I'm having with my publishers, but these contracts. Another thing I learned self-publishing was these contracts were a little bit binding because they want you to promote yourself, but they kind of tie you down with what you can and can't do. And I was really struggling to get those books through the publishers moving because of all these clauses in the contracts. You can't do this, you can't do that, but I've got this self-published book that I can basically do anything that I want. And the thing about self-publishing is it's 100% freedom, but it's also 100% responsibility. You're your own agent, you're your own graphic artist, you're the writer, you're the publicist, you're everything. So I had to learn this entire process, and that's basically what I've been doing for the last, ever since 2014, 2015. To date, I have published 30 books. Now that sounds like a lot, but let's keep in mind, with those 30 books, a lot of them were series, because from the mystery, I decided right after Rick's father passed in 2014, I started getting into science fiction. Science fiction, they like book series. So I wrote the Earthside trilogy. That came out about 2016, 17, 18. I wrote 2 more books in that series during the pandemic. I wrote the Sentient series. That one was a 4-book series. So 30 sounds like a lot, but you think, you've got those 5 books and you got a box set, so that counts as a 6th book. You've got these 4 books. All right, now you're up to 9, 10 books. And not all of those books are out there now. There are a few that I've taken out of print because they were similar to other things that were selling better, so I just decided, you know what, this isn't selling, but that is, so let's just push this. And it's kind of a strategy over what to promote, what not to promote. And the self-publishing, it kept building. It kept building, and over the past 2 years, 2025 was actually another turning point for me last year. Because last year, I got word that my publishers were shutting down. I got something at the beginning of the year now, Publish America, which did Battleground Earth, shut down in 2017. I just let that one go out of print because I wasn't doing nonfiction anymore, save some articles here and there, contributions to websites, things like that. Then last year, the other two publishers sent me these nice little emails saying, it's been a pleasure working with you, but we're shutting down. And that's starting to happen in the industry. A lot of these smaller publishers are shutting down. Now that you can publish through Amazon or other outlets, and with AI, and it makes it so much easier, people aren't going through publishers anymore, so they can sustain themselves. So now they're starting to shut down. And I remember one day last September, I have lunch with my mom once a week, and I got back to the office, and I was sitting in the parking lot. I was about 5 minutes early, and I checked my email. And I had yet another email in my inbox that said, we've acquired one of your publishers and decided we're not carrying any of those titles. This is your reversion of rights. Good luck to you. And I just sat there and I thought, this was the last one. I was like, I'm free. I am fully an independent author now. I have no more contracts binding me. I can do whatever I want with these books. I can define myself. I can start my own brand. So over the years, you know, as a writer, you gotta have a website. You gotta be on social media. And I decided, okay, I've been kind of studying up on the promotion, so I kind of branded my website as Broken Reality. Why Broken Reality? Well, my books all have a theme of people who have found their lives just completely destroyed, and they have to rebuild it. And lately, and one thing that is very popular right now is apocalyptic science fiction. Imagine that after a worldwide pandemic. It's huge. And actually, one of those books that I got the reversion of rights was an apocalyptic sci-fi novel that came out in 2013. I re-released it on my own. And it's come back around. Its time has come back around. This is what's popular now, and that's just it. You know, I'm finding that especially since the pandemic, people are really caught in this thing between, do I go back to the old way of life, or do I try to come up with something new? And that is especially relevant if you're middle-aged, because you get mixed messages. So I get these rights back to my book, and I decide I'm going to expand distribution. So I spent the last part of 2025. Now my books are all available. Paperback, hardback, ebook, even Amazon opened up a beta test on their Audible series. They have now got AI that can do audiobooks now. I am thrilled about that, because usually if you want an audiobook, the author has to pay the narrator upwards of $2,000 to $10,000. We can't afford that. I mean, shoot, some people with traditional contracts can't afford to do that. That's just way too much. And while I would like to see my books on Libby and with wider distribution through the libraries, I'm just happy to have them on Audible now. At least it's there. Get it all under the umbrella of my website. And of course, being in this industry, I've made friends with some other people who are writers. And one thing that they started telling me last year was, you got to get into the videos. Well, I'm taking a video now. You got to get into the videos. Somebody asked me to make a video for her. She said, you do really well at this. You need to add that. And the next thing I know, I'm on YouTube and I'm on Instagram. And then, kicking and screaming, last November, TikTok. I don't like TikTok. Those TikTok challenges, I think they're a bad influence. But she turned me. She said there's a lot of readers, there's a lot of influencers on there. And these influencers on Instagram and TikTok are starting to get into the paperback and hardback books now to do their videos. And now that's what's selling books, is you got to get the videos out there. You You've got to get people making videos. You've got to do book trailers. Have you ever seen a book trailer? It's basically an ad, like a commercial, where they put together a short video that's supposed to describe your book. I'm actually experimenting with that now with AI, because that's another thing. It's AI. I'm a really big believer in that. It needs to come from up here. You need to make up your own story. But editors are expensive, and I'm not a good graphic artist, and I gotta say, ChatGPT has become my friend for my social media posts. I can't draw a stick figure. You could have asked Dad that. He knew from his drawing board. But boy, it's been a lifesaver. It's just been great. And another thing that I realized, is funny, because Pastor Wade was talking Friday night about how God is always doing new things in your life. And the timeliness of being asked to be here has not, it's really not escaped me, because I've been having more opportunities to speak to more people and to get the message out there about my books. And I've also come to realize what I'm trying to do here is not really sell books, even though I appreciate it if you bought them, you read them. I'm an avid reader myself. I love to read, and I know the power of a good book that can really just not only take you outside of yourself, but give you inspiration on how to live your life better, maybe, approach things in your life in a way, just kind of give you more perspective on things. And I'm starting to realize that what I'm trying to do here isn't just selling books. It's building a community for people to do what Pastor Wade said Friday night. God is always doing a new thing in your life. He's always pushing you forward. As a sci-fi writer, I say the nature of the universe is expansion, and that is personal as well as universal. We're always growing, and we're always learning, and we're always being called to do new things. And, it's funny because Rick and I are actually at a crossroads right now. He just retired a month ago. Give him a hand for, a career well done at Lexington School District 1. He computer technician with the school district. He gave it his all. And he really made a difference and is ready to move on and to new things. And one thing that he started saying to me when he applied for retirement was, I don't know what to do. Your whole life, there's always something ahead of you that you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be finishing school or achieving this goal, or graduate, move on, get a job, get married, have kids. We didn't do that part, but you have kids, you get a job, you get promoted, and then you retire, and well, now what? Now what is there? It's the messy middle of life is what it is. And I said, I'll tell you now what. Now we get to determine what's next. For free, just like those book contracts being dropped. You're free, just like me, yay! It's whatever you want it to be. And this is tricky, this is tricky because we live in a world that values youth. I'm talking to the right crowd here, we live in a world that values youth. And maybe it's always been this way, or maybe it's just developing. I think maybe it's always been this way. You're in the workforce, you're not promotable after 40. They're looking for new, innovative ideas and new directions to grow. Translation, you're not impressionable anymore. You got a little too much wisdom, and you know what's what and what really matters. You're not hireable after 50. You're too close to retirement. We don't know how much more we can get out of you. And yet, you get outside of the workplace and you take a look around. And I got a few little interesting things here that I want to share with you. Is that after facing all of this, after facing my last performance review about, so when are you going to retire? When am I going to retire? That's like saying, when am I going to die? I'm going to eventually, but it's not really on my radar right now. It seems a little rude, but people start asking you that. You hit 22, 23, 24 years. They want to know how much longer you're going to be around. When can we hire somebody cheaper than me? And I get back from my performance review, and I was like, Man, it's been going so good, and now all of a sudden they want to know how much longer I'm planning on being around. And then I went home. Ozzy Osbourne raised $192 million for charity on July 5th. He was 76 years old with Parkinson's disease. And not just him, it was 2 weeks before he passed away. But his guitarist, Tony Iommi, had been battling stage 3 Hodgkin's lymphoma. His drummer, Bill Ward, has had 2 heart attacks. And then there's Geezer Butler, another guitarist. I had heard that he had had struggles with long-term COVID. I'd also heard that was a myth. I don't know whether that's true or not, but he has reported having tremendous anxiety and depression, even up to that concert. Everybody was saying how well he performed and how, wow, I just got out there and nailed it. And he was like, I was about to throw up before that performance. I was so nervous. These guys are in their 70s. And they're still out there doing it. Here's another example. Y'all have heard of Metallica. Y'all have heard of the USC band winning that $50,000 for their contest to do a song for a video game. Rick and I saw those guys in concert last May at Bank of America Stadium. They put on a great show. 2 weeks before that concert, they actually caused an earthquake at Lane Stadium at Virginia Tech. They were just so loud, and the crowd got so excited, it set off their riggers hill. Those guys are in their 60s. Every single one of them. 2 nights ago, Rick and I went to a concert in Charleston. We saw Jeff Tate. He was in an 80s band, performing an album that he did late 80s, early 90s. We were blown away. We were like, he sounds every bit as good as he did back in 1990. Went home, looked at that man is 67 years old. So we live in a world that thinks we're ready to put out the pasture and just be quiet after age 40, 50. And then I see all of this. Now, I'm not saying that rock stars are the way to build your life. I'm saying their tenacity and their determination. They've got some habits we don't need, but their tenacity and determination to still get out there. And I'll tell you one thing, through all of these things, is all of them said, thank you, thank you. You getting this out to you, seeing you appreciate this, is what gives this work meaning. And that's how I feel about my writing and this broken reality community that I'm building. Is I'm trying to give people a safe place to say, you know what, you're not done until you're done. And even when you are done, you're still not done. Because that drafting table has been gone for decades. My father passed away 5.5 years ago. I'm still standing here right now. It lives on in me, and I'm passing it on to you and the rest of the world. Now, we're not causing earthquakes in stadiums. We're not playing music halls. We are impacting lives, every one of us. You have children, you have grandchildren, nieces, nephews, neighbors, friends. I'm going to tell you something. You're not done. And even when you think you are, you're still not. Because where there's life, there's hope. And when life is over, there's legacy. And what I want people to do is build legacy and realize the impact that you are having, the power you have, not just to get out in the world, to share your message, share God's message, to be who He made you to be in the world. It's scary. I know. Rick and I are standing at the threshold of it right now. We are still adapting to life. We have no idea what life is going to look like 6 months to a year from now. I'm going to live with what's right in front of us. And everybody else should too. That's what I want people to feel like. They can come to this broken reality community. Whether they buy my books or whether they interact on my social media, I want them to feel like this is a safe place to be me and to express my doubts and my worries and my fears, so we can help and encourage and inspire one another. Because that's what my books are all about. You know, that's what apocalyptic science fiction is all about. That's what paranormal stuff is all about. It's about rising above and realizing what's in you is greater than what's in the world. And it's going to live on forever. not just in eternity, but in this world, in this connected world, you have more of an outreach than you think, and I want you to embrace it. I want you to be proud. I want everybody to just forget what the world tells you is right, because everything that they say is right, there's examples out there that go straight against it. You be who God made you to be. And if you're scared and if you're worried, that's fine. We're here for each other. That's the message of my writing. That's my message to you. That's my message to everybody online. And I am open now to any questions, comments, doubts, thinking I'm full of nonsense.
Sharon, do you write under your name, or?
Yes, I do.
And so the best, easiest way to find your book is what?
I actually have a website, and I brought my cards here with me, so I'll give y'all a card to find it. Most of my sales are through Amazon, and that's where the widest distribution is. And I actually have a new book coming out May 5th.
What's the name of it?
It is Exile, Book 1 of the Dark Mirror Trilogy. Would you like for me to read you the blurb from that book? I actually have it here. And this book, it is book 1 in a trilogy. And if you're interested, and something in this might sound a little bit familiar to some of you. It's exiled by choice and united by fate. Dr. Addison Lybrand's career ends the moment the object she's tracking vanishes beyond the heliopause. Discredited by her member and expelled from Earth by an authoritarian regime, she accepts a last remote assignment, studying the object's lingering spatial distortions at Kuiper Station 1, the solar system's farthest outpost. Then Earth is attacked. Cut off from inner worlds and hurled into isolation ahead of schedule, Addison and 3 fellow exiles are left to survive on the edge of civilization. When the object returns, closer, faster, and violently altered, they uncover a chilling truth. Their exile may have been voluntary, but nothing else was. Every accusation, every banishment, every move has been engineered to drive them towards a single impossible end. It's actually book 1 of a trilogy. And maybe I've learned something about messing middles, because I actually feel like book 2 is the strongest book in this trilogy. I usually struggle with those middles, but it's really come together. I sometimes wonder if I'm all right in the head for writing this. It's a little bit odd. Yeah. Because my grandparents were Clarence and Maureen Lybrand, Mom's parents. And another reason, and this didn't quite make the talk, but another reason why I really love writing is because Granddaddy used to tell me stories all the time. I would go over to his house, and he was in World War II, he was in the Navy. He would tell me stories all the time. He would tell me about his life. He really thought that it was important for me to connect with my history, with my family, and just where I came from. And it's kind of a tribute, you know. We would sit and look at the birds outside in his yard, and he'd tell stories, and then I'd go home and I'd throw my books on Dad's drawing board and make a mess and draw pictures, and you know, it was great fun. But that's why I picked Lybrand. It's a family name.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
We certainly appreciate that. Enlightening, and I'm sure some of us will take the opportunity to go out to Amazon and check out your books there. Pretty amazing, 30 books. Very busy.
Over a while.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And now, Pastor Russ, will turn it over to you to let us know about the shut-ins and the upcoming birthday.